Hello and welcome to the Inside Report. I'm Constance Blackburn.
And I'm Doug Bear. This month we're taking an inside look at jury duty.
And we'll visit the Assessor's office. But first, some headlines.
If it's Valentine's Day, you can expect a greeting from our county treasurer. Meredith Green reminds us that if you're a property owner, you can expect to receive your property tax statement on or about Valentine's Day. Watch for an email or the easily identifiable pink envelope, and when you receive it, please take a moment to read the enclosed letter regarding your tax statement and consider going online to view additional information about your property. And if you can't wait for Valentine's Day, that information's already online. Go to the county's homepage shown below and click on the parcel search icon. You'll find your tax statement and other pertinent information after you enter your search information.
With Powerball fever over, and trust me, neither of us won, we can turn our attention to finding hidden treasures in our own homes. The Kitsap History Museum and the Puget Sound Genealogical Society are hosting History and Heritage 2016 at the fairgrounds on February 27th and 28th. This annual event began in 1998 and has since become the largest and best-known antique show in Kitsap County. The two-day event includes a large antique appraisal area where you can have your family heirlooms and treasures appraised for a nominal fee. It also includes a sales area, a food court, and free parking. The show opens at 10 a.m. on both days. Admission is just $6. Appraisals for your items are only $5. For more information, contact the History Museum or the Genealogical Society at the numbers shown below.
Well, that's great, Constance. Kitsap County Commissioner Rob Gelder was selected in January to participate in a year-long National Transportation Leadership Training Academy that focuses on using performance measures to better assess the impacts of transportation spending in Kitsap County and the Puget Sound region. He's part of a team from the Puget Sound Regional Council. They'll be joining 6 other dynamic groups of local business, civic and elected leaders, and transportation professionals from throughout the country. It's a great honor to be part of this accomplished group of leaders, Gelder said. Our ability to develop, implement, and analyze performance is vital when making targeted investments in our transportation infrastructure. The Federal Highway Administration worked with the nonprofit Transportation for America to design the academy that will provide expert analysis on plans, implementation, and performance measures for transportation projects within long-range plans. The year-long Leadership Academy consists of in-person workshops with participants from 6 other regions, including Boston, Massachusetts, Cleveland, Ohio, Des Moines, Iowa, Indianapolis and South Bend, Indiana, and Lee County, Florida. Ongoing technical assistance will be provided, along with regular online training sessions and expert analysis of plans and progress on deploying performance measures.
The International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners recently announced that the Kitsap County Coroner's Office has received accreditation by the association. The Kitsap County Coroner's Office self-submitted to this process for the purpose of ensuring the operating policies, procedures, and practices are within international guidelines. The Kitsap County Coroner's Office was subjected to a review of 130 standards, including administrative, forensic, investigative, and facility review. The association requires 100% compliance of mandatory standards and 90% of all applicable standards. We are very excited and proud to have met this goal, said Tony Stewart, Chief Deputy Coroner. Throughout the process, we discovered that we have been doing most things the right way all along. The accreditation affirms this and presented some opportunities to incorporate additional best management practices in our operations, Stewart added. The process involved many hours ensuring our policies were up to date. It also allowed us to implement new training and procedures to improve the performance of our operations, said County Coroner Greg Sandstrom. Through the work of all our staff and Tony's diligence, we were able to meet these standards in only 5 months, Sandstrom added. Kitsap County is one of only 26 counties nationwide to obtain this accreditation.
Well, congratulations to the coroner's office. You know, we're in February and spring is right around the corner, but winter storms and cold weather often combine to create unique fire hazards. The Kitsap County Fire Marshal's office is encouraging fire-safe precautions this winter. Candles, cooking, and the improper use of heating equipment continue to be one of the main causes of winter fires, according to David Lynham, Kitsap County's fire marshal. We've seen the number of fires with these causes double from last year within the unincorporated Kitsap County area, he added. You know, candles may look pretty, but they do continue to be a cause of home fires and home fire deaths. A candle is, after all, an open flame, which means that it can easily ignite anything that can burn. Cooking brings family and friends together. It provides a great outlet for creativity, and it can be real relaxing, but cooking fires remain the #1 cause of home fires and home injuries. We encourage residents to implement procedures to help keep their home and their family safe during the winter months, Lynham added. You can find many helpful tips at the link shown below. We really encourage you to be fire safe this winter and help prevent home fires.
Those are great reminders for all of us this season, Doug. Most of us know that jury duty is one of our civic responsibilities. This month, we're going to take a look at what happens when you're called to jury duty. So let's head out to the courthouse for an inside look at jury duty.
Thank you, Constance. Well, this morning we're here at the Kitsap County Courthouse. This is where most prospective jurors report when they're summoned to jury duty. Today we're going to take an inside look at jury duty, so let's go ahead inside and see what happens when you report for jury duty. All right, I'm with Kathy Blackstock this morning. We're in the jury assembly room, room 110 at the courthouse. Kathy, tell me a little bit about how one gets selected for jury duty.
If you vote, drive, or have a state ID card in Kitsap County, you are eligible to receive a jury summons.
And how frequently might one receive a jury summons?
Well, the legislature says that you're eligible to receive a jury summons once every 12 months. That said, it's more like every 2 to 3, maybe 4 years. It's a random selection by computer.
So when I get the actual summons, what should I be aware of, or what should I look for on the summons itself?
On the summons, there are 2 sets of instructions. The first set of instructions at the top of the summons tell you what you are supposed to do with this legal document. Basically, to answer it within a certain period of time, and there are multiple ways that you can answer your jury summons. The second set of instructions down here on Part B of the summons tell you what you are to do during your reporting week.
You talked about multiple ways to respond to the summons. What are some of the ways you do that?
We do accept telephone calls if you would like to call us. However, most jurors answer by mail. You fill out the answers to your qualification questions. You do have to qualify for jury duty. And then you fold the summons up with our address on the outside and mail it back to us.
And does the summons allow, like if you have some special circumstances or some reason that you don't feel you could serve as a juror, is that when you would voice those concerns, or does that happen later in the process?
You may voice them at that time. There are circumstances outlined here on the claim of exemption.
And what are some reasons that people ask to be excused or rescheduled?
If you're a stay-at-home parent, we would not expect you to report for jury duty. There are also health issues, and if you are over the age of 75, you may ask to be permanently exempted from jury duty.
Great. So now I've got my exemption. I come down to the courthouse and I come to this room. We're going to meet Paul Gentry. He's going to tell us a little bit about what happens then.
Well, the first thing we do is we say, hey, put this on your collar or whatever type of code, etc. that you have, because we want to make sure that everybody realizes that there's a juror, in attendance, and generally people won't talk to jurors, and that's the goal. We don't want them talking to other
Sure.
people, lawyers, etc. So when they're entering and leaving, that's clearly identifiable. We give them a juror guide in case they haven't been here before.
So tell me, you hear a lot of different stories about jury duty. What would you say is important for people to consider when you're asked to come and serve on a jury?
Well, it is a privilege to be part of a jury or part of the jury process. It's a duty and responsibility of our United States citizenship, and it all boils down to if you were accused of something, would you not want people to willingly serve as jurors on your trial to come up with a fair outcome?
And what happens if I can't report? I've already done all my preliminary stuff and I get up that morning and I'm deathly sick, or maybe I went to the hospital the night before, or my mother's needs a ride to the hospital for some reason or another. I can't come on the day that I'm supposed to come. What should I do and what happens?
Well, first off, we make sure that we tell people on the message the night before that if you're ill, do not come in. We don't want you coming in. For one thing, it's not good for you, and it's certainly not good for the people around you. So you just simply call us, and we might not be able to pick up right away because we have people coming in,
Sure.
and we have briefs to do, etc. But we definitely want to make sure that they don't come, and then they can just reschedule it after that.
And what happens if I just don't respond to a jury summons? Is that I just don't even answer you at all?
Well, we realize that, the system does, and then we send out letters from the jury commissioner saying you missed your service and please call in, and we just move them to another time because they may have simply forgotten or thrown it in a drawer or thought it was a voter, ballot, etc. So there's lots of reasons. People just forget. It's on their fridge and it's covered over with pictures.
Well, it sounds like it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do. I want to thank you both for spending time with us today, and thank you both for the service you do in helping prospective jurors get into the system. I'm with Judge Kevin Hall, and we're going to talk a little bit about what happens once you're in the courtroom. Judge, would you like to share with us a little bit of what happens there?
Sure, I suppose that's where the real action begins. But jurors can expect when they come into a courtroom first to be introduced to the case by the judge, but very, very minimally. Juries don't get a lot of information about the case until the case actually begins with presentation of evidence. But the judge will instruct the jury as it relates to what the case is about and what can they expect during the trial in terms of procedure. But the most interesting, I think, component that juries face when they're brought into the courtroom initially is just the voir dire process. Voir dire literally means to speak the truth. The judge has the opportunity to ask any members of the jury panel questions. The lawyers do as well. And it really is a fascinating part of the case because the lawyers are trying to find out information from people they don't know in a limited period of time and find out information that may have an impact on their presentation of the case. The discussions tend not to be about politics or what people read or what their interests are necessarily. The discussions tend to be about their points of view about the justice system, about notions of credibility and how credibility is determined. Perhaps if a case is about possession of controlled substance, what are the points of views of various jurors about the legalization of controlled substances. So really, the lawyers and the judge are probing into whether or not the jurors are bringing any biases or prejudices that might have an impact on the case. And I think that's really the end part of that statement is the most important. We all have biases and prejudices. That's natural. Just going through life, we pick up those things. Judges are obligated to set aside those biases and prejudices when deciding a case. Jurors are as well. And so the question isn't so much whether or not you might have a bias or a prejudice, but whether that bias or prejudice might impact the case. And so it's really a free-flow discussion. We want jurors to disagree. We want, for example, if juror seating in seat number 6 answers a question and juror in seat number 23 disagrees, we want that juror to raise their hand and say, I disagree. Really, it's about gathering information from a large group of people and finding out what about them provides the fairness and impartiality we need from jurors. And so that's really kind of the voir dire process. It's a discussion. It's questions and answers intended to find out something about people that we know nothing about. Sure. And so that's the process. And most people, I think, maybe initially are a little weary about coming in and serving, but once they get involved in the case, I think we find that jurors are engaged. But really, we want to make sure that jurors understand that they're not to make any formed or fixed opinions about the case until the case goes to them for deliberations. During the trial, one of the frustrations juries have is the fact there can be some lengthy delays. One of the things that I always share with all juries at the conclusion of a case is a passage from a book, and I want to give credit where credit's due. The book is called Why Jury Duty Matters, a Citizen Guide to Constitutional Action. It's written by a gentleman named Andrew Ferguson, who is a law professor back in Washington, D.C. He's a former public defender. And the book is very interesting, and one of the most interesting aspects of the book is the historical context as for why we have juries. This isn't something that we just kind of made up yesterday. This was something that was discussed in Philadelphia in 1787 during the Constitutional Convention. But it wasn't discussed for very long because it was one of the few things, as I'll read in a moment, one of the few things that the drafters of the Constitution agreed upon right off the bat. And there's a reason for that. So let me share with you the passage that I like to read to juries after a case. The insight of the founders was not simply to put our ideals down on paper, but to create mechanisms to practice those ideals. The Constitution provides a framework not only for government, but also for civic and political engagement. The jury is but one of those institutional structures designed to turn ideals into reality. You might believe in fairness and accountability, but as a juror, you get to apply those principles. Juries were foundational to America. It's no overstatement to say that those who created this nation ranked the right to trial by jury as the greatest source of liberty. A jury trial was guaranteed in the charter that founded the first English settlement at Jamestown in 1607. The lack of jury trials was an explicit grievance listed by Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence, a complaint that helped spark the American Revolution. Between the Declaration of Independence in 1776 and the signing of the Constitution in 1787, each of the colonies established the constitutional right to a criminal jury trial for its citizens. At the founding of the United States, the right to a jury trial was one of the first constitutional rights agreed to at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. It's the only right that appears in both the text of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. In the Bill of Rights, 3 of the first 10 amendments expressly protect juries. The 5th Amendment protects the grand jury, the 6th Amendment protects the criminal jury, and the 7th Amendment protects the civil jury. Further, at the time of the drafting of the Constitution, both the First Amendment protection from prior restraint of speech and the Fourth Amendment's protection from unreasonable searches and seizures were effectuated by civil jury trials. This means that half of the Bill of Rights was in one way or another focused on the right to trial by jury. In fact, the right to a jury was one of the only things all of the Founding Fathers could agree on. So you can see this is really, this is bedrock. This is fundamental to our process. We can debate the interpretation of the Constitution. We can debate what various amendments to the Constitution mean. We can debate how to apply our Constitution that was drafted in 1787 to today's issues and problems. We don't debate the right to a trial by jury. And I think that pretty much says it all.
Great.
Thanks, Doug. Here at the Port Orchard County Administration Building, I'm going downstairs to visit the Assessor's office and County Assessor Phil Cook to learn more about what they do and programs that are available to the public. Let's head downstairs. So here I am with County Assessor Phil Cook. Phil, thanks for having us here today.
Well, thanks for coming by, Constance. We really appreciate it.
I'm excited to learn about some of the functions of your office here. Can you explain to me a little bit about what goes on?
The Kitsap County Assessor's office is comprised of 24 people, and within that 24 people, we have 11 residential appraisers, we have 3 commercial appraisers, a cadastral team of 3 people, and then our administrative team is comprised of 7 people, that includes myself as well as our chief deputy.
Okay. And what is a cadastral team? What does that mean?
So our cadastral team is our mapping team. So their responsibility is to make sure that all the parcels are mapped out accurately, and they oversee any boundary line adjustments or any mergers of property or separation of property, any adjustments to property lines. Is also they process the recordings and make sure names are changed in our system for tax bills.
Wow, okay, it sounds like quite a job.
It is.
Explain to me some of the functions of your office.
Okay, so the responsibility of our office starts off with really we are required to distribute the property tax burden amongst all the owners throughout the county.
Okay.
So the county is comprised of 117,000 tax parcels, and of that, about 6,500 of them are commercial property. And then on top of that, we also have business personal property. So, and really, the taxing districts work with our office to make sure that we distribute that tax obligation accurately.
Now, I hear there's some programs like exemptions and things like that that are available to the public. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
So the state has laid out a variety of different property tax exemptions or deferral programs. So they range from properties that have forest land and designated forest land where they harvest the trees for commercial harvesting for timber purposes, and then we have a remodel exemption for people who make improvements to their property, to people who farm their property, and our most popular program is our senior or disabled persons exemption program for seniors and disabled people that own a home.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about more about that last program. There are some changes to it this year?
So that program, like I said, is our most popular. We have about 3,300 homeowners that take advantage of that program currently. And last year, well, prior to 2016, there's income limitations for that program, to qualify for that program. And it was $35,000 and below. The legislature changed that last year, and it increased to $40,000. So we're expecting an increase in applicants here in 2016 because of those new higher income limits.
Okay. And do you feel like that's going to be a large increase?
You know, this happens very so often. 2005 was the last time they raised the income limits, and we saw about an 800 household increase. So now we're anticipating approximately the same. So we'll probably have over 4,000 households on the program after this year or in coming years as people learn about it and apply.
Okay, and that's great. And that's just for the senior and disabled exemptions, correct?
It is, or a veteran that's 100% disabled. So there's some basic requirements that you have to be at least 61 years of age if you're as a senior, and your household income has to be, total household income has to be below $40,000, and it's tiered based off what your income level is. The lower your income, the greater the exemption you get.
Let's head on into the office and see somebody applying just for this exact program.
Let's do it.
Hi, how can I help you?
Hello, I heard there's a program that helps me reduce my property taxes, but I'm not sure which one of these applies to me. Could you help me with that?
Absolutely. This is our brochure for our senior citizen and disabled persons exemption program. The qualifications for this are you must be either 61 years of age or older as of December 31st of the prior year, or be unable to work due to a disability, or 100% service-connected disabled. You must also own your own home and live there for more than 6 months of the year, so it has to be a primary residence, and have an annual combined income of $40,000 or less.
So if I qualify, how much are my taxes reduced?
Well, this exemption program is set up based on income levels. It's tiered based on the income, so essentially the lower the income, the greater the amount of reduction applied.
Okay. I'm a little bit confused about what's the difference between the exemption program and the deferral program.
Okay, so we have one exemption program and we actually have two deferral programs. This one is our senior citizen and disabled persons deferral program, so that is paired with our exemption program. The same qualifications would apply, so you need to meet the age or disability criteria and the ownership and residency criteria, but the income threshold for this is $45,000 instead of $40,000 for the exemption program. Now the difference with a deferral versus an exemption program, if you qualify, your property taxes are reduced and you do not have to pay that amount back. With a deferral program, you're essentially deferring payment for a later date. So if you apply for the deferral program, you're asking the Department of Revenue to pay your property taxes for you. If you qualify, they do that. They would then put a lien on the property, which would accrue interest, but this is something that you could pay back in an amount or in a time frame that would work for you. Now, this one is independent of our senior and disabled programs. This is our limited income deferral program, so there is not an age or disability criteria. The qualifications are that you have to own your own home for more than 5 years and have sufficient equity, and have an income of $57,000 or less. With this program, what you would do is you would pay your first half taxes and then apply, and if you qualify, the Department of Revenue would pay the second half for you. like this deferral program for our senior and disabled persons, it is a lien that's placed on the property and it does accrue interest, but it's something that you could pay back on a schedule that would work for you.
Okay, well, I think I might apply for the senior exemption program.
Okay.
Could I get an application to take home
Yeah,
with me?
absolutely. Let me get one for you. And if you had any questions, you're certainly welcome to come into our office, give us a call, or we do have information on our website as well.
Okay, and what was that website address again?
Our website is www.kitsapgov.com/ASSR.
And the phone number?
360-337-7160.
Great, well, thank you very much.
You're
You've been very
welcome.
helpful.
All right, have a good day now.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, here I am with Maxine Scholl. She's the assessment administrator for the assessor's office. Maxine, tell me a little bit about your job.
I administer the exemption programs and oversee the levies, the personal property, and I supervise the customer service.
Earlier, we got to learn a little bit about the senior exemption program and the updates to that. Tell me a little bit about some other programs that are available to the public.
We have designated forest land. To qualify for that program, you have to have at least 5 acres or more that is primarily devoted to the growth and harvest of commercial timber.
Okay.
You have to have a timber management plan, and then you may qualify for that program. There's also an open space program that is designed for property that is in its natural state. You want to keep it that way. You don't want to cut trees or clear brush. Then you might qualify for that program. And then there's also a farm and agriculture. Farmers, it has to be a commercial farm, and they have to prove their income for at least 3 of the last 5 years. They have to have a farm management plan if they have farm animals on the property.
Mm-hmm.
And then they could qualify for that program as well.
Mm-hmm.
There is also a 3-year improvement exemption. If you do a remodel to your home, then you may qualify to have the market value of that remodel improvement exempted for up to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So that's a good program.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'd like to mention is destroyed property. It's not really an exemption, but anytime a homeowner or property owner has destroyed property, whether it is torn down, they did it, or they had a fire or a natural disaster, they just need to give us a call and make sure we're aware of that so they're not being taxed for that destroyed property.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It sounds like there are actually a lot of programs to help make things more reasonable for the customer.
Yes, and all of the programs are listed on our website, or they can just give us a call and we can go over more of the criteria, get them applications, whatever they need to do.
Great. Thanks so much, Maxine.
You're welcome.
Phil, we've really enjoyed this visit today to your office, and I've learned a lot. I didn't realize there were so many exemption programs. Earlier, you mentioned that there is an obligation to distribute those tax obligations. How does that work when there are these deferrals and exemptions?
Right. Well, as you heard, we have many deferral programs and exemptions, and there's 7, I believe, total. And there's actually a couple other little ones that are used so rarely that we don't really talk about them. But the interesting part of that is when you look at a particular segment of homes. And if someone, and you have, let's say you have 4 homes, and someone qualifies for exemption, and now they're not paying that portion of the property taxes, that means everybody else is picking up the slack. That doesn't mean that the taxes goes away. What it means, it gets redistributed amongst all the other property taxpayers that aren't getting the benefit of an exemption.
And I imagine, like other local agencies, you guys struggle to get the word out. I mean, how do you let the community know about these programs and the availability to them?
We're trying to find the avenues that we can. We're taking on revamping of our own website on the Assessor's site. This year we're trying to simplify it so that it's easier to navigate, so people can find the needed information so they can make good decisions. And so we're adding videos that explain these programs. So not only is there a write-up about some of these exemptions, but there's also a video that walks people through the process. And then our office is always available to take questions and to help the citizens with any concerns or questions they might have about these programs.
That's so great. And where can people go to learn more information?
So, well, you can call us, and that's 360-337-7160, or go to our website, kitsapgov.com, and then look under the departments tab, find the assessors page, go on there, and there'll be information on the left-hand side where it says exemptions and tax relief.
Okay.
And there's a lot of other information on there that we're adding recently, like graphs and tutorials explaining how not just these programs work, but also what are the trends in the Kitsap marketplace and what's going on with real estate.
Thanks for joining us on this month's episode of the Inside Report. We'll see you next time.